Everyone get out!
Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a somewhat different than usual video. I'm going to try and tackle a particular subject today, one that affects everybody playing World of Tanks. And I was tempted to make this like a What Tanks video, but it's a bit too general and vague, and I don't know, I've decided to categorize it as a kind of miscellaneous, I don't know what the hell this is, but I'm going to try and talk about it anyway, sort of a video. So the topic I want to try and cover and really talk about from my own point of view and my own experience of is the frustration that one experiences sometimes when playing this game, because there are so many times I mean, okay, we'll start at the beginning. I'm kind of, this might be a bit all over the place in terms of my thoughts, but the ideal of this sort of game is that regardless of the situation, regardless of the team list, regardless of the map, regardless of the tank that you yourself are in as an individual, that the team overall has a chance of winning. Sometimes that just isn't true, because of course World of Tanks, the matchmaking in terms of player skill is totally random. There is no skill-based matchmaking at all, and this isn't going to be a video about that subject. I'm just going to make that clear right now. It's just that is the fact of life. Sometimes you get into a battle, and even as a non-XVM user I can tell this is not going to be a good one. So this particular instance, this is a VKB, this is a 9.2 replay, so the VKB is now a very strong tank, but we've already had an E75 that just drowned himself. I can only theorise, maybe he lagged out and he had the auto drive enabled and went into the lake. I don't know. But anyway, that has put us off to a bad start. And sometimes, obviously if you're an XVM user, you probably experience this feeling much more frequently when you look at team list and you see it's a list of players that XVM says aren't the best players, and maybe you get a sinking feeling at that point. Well, how do you cope with that? How do we deal with that kind of the expectation of frustration, but also the frustration itself? Well, of course, I can only really talk about my own experience in this matter, and I've actually picked out two replays here that are quite different in terms of why I got frustrated, but they were actually both from the same evening, and they were only actually a couple of battles apart. Now this one, like I said, it's the 9.2 VKB. The 9.2 VKB is no faster than the 9.1 VKB, so this is something I experience given that I play a lot of slower tanks, is that some maps, some situations, you literally are not fast enough to get to the points on the map where you need to be to make a difference, and that is a thing that puts off a lot of people about playing slow tanks. It's just a peril of slow tanks generally, and there's nothing you can especially do about it. It just happens sometimes. So in this situation I decided I'm going to try and go for the hill, because I know there's going to be a lot of enemies there, and I'm in a strong tank and I know I can make a difference, but we have to hold at least that slope of the hill for long enough for me to be able to get there. Also in this match there are two artillery, one of which is a tier 9, so that is a major complicating factor. That really limits how much I can do. The moment they start picking on me, well, I can't dodge out of the way. And one of the things that, and this is an entirely separate topic, but one of the things that kind of bugs me is when artillery players say, well, you just need to play smarter, you need to play better, you need to go where artillery can't get you. That renders some maps functionally unplayable, and this is kind of one of them. There is very, very little artillery safe cover on this map. And there are a lot of maps where there are certain areas of the map where you need to be. And if you just give them up, if you just sit safe behind artillery cover, you've lost if you don't even try. So that's what I find annoying about that argument. That is not much to do. That's a different kind of frustration. This particular situation, I mean, it's not looking good. We've lost half of our team. It's 3-7, and you've all experienced battles like this. So what do you do? How do you cope with this? Well, I think there are a couple of different things, and it depends actually how you're playing the game, because the times when I get really frustrated with World of Tanks, well, there's a couple. Either I've had a string of battles in a row where I've been playing really badly, or I've gotten very unlucky with teams, I've gotten unlucky with matchmaking, whatever. That's a fairly simple one. Generally speaking, if that's the kind of situation you're in, the very best thing you can do is take a break. And that's a bit of a no-brainer. If you're getting frustrated and you are... If the reason you're getting frustrated is because you're not playing particularly well to begin with, you're only going to start playing worse. And even if you're playing okay, but you've been dealt a really bad hand by matchmaking in terms of teams or in terms of being bottom tier constantly, then again, that is something that's beyond your control. And you just... On one level, you have to accept that there are going to be battles that you just can't win. And that's the kind of... That's why people play like games like this. If you just had a game where everybody won all the time, no one would play it. At least not this kind of online multiplayer. That wouldn't even... You know, that's an impossibility. A game where everyone's a winner! But it's the idea that you might lose that makes the victories better. But sometimes the victories are crushing enough that you start to wonder why you're doing this. You start to think, well, is this fun? Why am I playing this right now? And that's the point where I go and take a break. And this didn't used to be the case. It used to be, I would keep at it. I would keep bashing my head against the wall. And I kind of deliberately lowered my threshold for how many bad battles I have in a row before I take a break. Now there are some exceptions. If I'm on the stream or whatever, then we keep going because I'm with the Circon, and generally, but you know, and Fosh or someone else, generally in a platoon you can have a much bigger impact. And I should say, I'm probably talking about this more from a point of view of playing as a solo player. You can mitigate it to some extent by playing in a platoon with other good players, of course. But as far as it goes, it can still get frustrating, and it's after about 4 or 5 battles that I decide, okay, no, I'm going to take a break, unless I'm on the stream or something like that. Usually if we're on the stream, we don't have 4 or 5 bad battles in a row, but it can happen. That's the thing to remember, by the way. Even the very best players have these games where they can play at the absolute best of their ability, and the rest of the team is bad enough that it doesn't matter. You can play your heart out and it just doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean, there are times though when maybe you just have to accept that. Now, we're on to now a Conqueror replay, and I've finally got the top gun for the Conqueror. But I'm still finding it kind of frustrating. My initial thought was, I'll play it kind of like an upground Carnarvon, or like an M103 that, you know, it's got slightly less good mobility than the M103. At least it does when I don't have the top engine yet. But actually, no, I'm thinking, play it more like a French tank. Play it like everything is going to hurt you, because so far everything has hurt me when I've been playing it. So I've just been getting more and more cautious as I've played it. Even now I have the top gun. Anyway, this is a case, this match is going to be rather different. It's going to be frustrating for different reasons. And with top tier, I've got the top gun, I know I can do some damage, I've got good DPM. I don't know if that was a frame rate derp or if that derp was actually with the replay. I don't know. I could have just been in the recording. But I felt like I had better chances in this one. Now, sometimes, like I was saying, you have to accept that you're just going to get frustrated, and the reason the Conqueror is relevant to this is with some tanks, with stock grinds, or perhaps you're getting through a tank where you don't particularly enjoy it, but you want the tanks that come after it, or maybe there's a special event on, like for instance one of the weekend specials, or you're just kind of running out of premium time, or there's something that means that it is worth continuing to grind onwards even though you are feeling frustrated. I think you then have to come at the game with a different mindset and say, yes, okay, these are going to be probably worse games because I'm not enjoying myself right now, but there's a purpose to it, there's a reason behind it. Sometimes you just have to care less, I think is the best way to put it. At least that's what I found, but I still find that quite difficult, because even in, I mean, that last game, the VKB, if I'd just given up and sat there and let them kill me, functionally, the result of the battle would have been exactly the same, but I don't know, I still have a mindset, even in that situation, that I'm gonna keep swinging as I go down. Yeah, I don't know where that shot went. And that is true of most battles. There are very, very few occasions where I've just gotten that frustrated that I decide, right, okay, no, I'm not even gonna play out the rest of this battle, I'm just gonna walk away right now. If you get to that level where you're thinking that, then it's probably best that you just do it, because there's no point subjecting yourself to the frustration of... you're just going to make it worse, basically. So here we go, tier 7 tank destroyer, pow, nearly 500 damage. Yeah, this team was not looking great. Now, we all stopped to shoot at things in the middle, and the Torty was rather a high value target. The Comet being in the middle was annoying, but that cost us getting into town. Now, I didn't think it would matter that much, but as it turns out it has. And as it turns out, we haven't even been able to defend the valley in this particular match. Now, this was a particularly frustrating game for me. Well, you'll see from the result, but because I have yet to really have that one good game in the Crusader, and the Conqueror, rather. And I want to like it, and I want to like the gun, because I like the Carnarvon. And it's frustrating for me on the level that... for one thing, I've got in my head, okay, I'm a good player, why am I sucking in this tank? And I have to remind myself that going from one tank to another tank, and this can be another source of frustration, going up a tech tree, you can end up in some very different vehicles along the way. So you might do really well in one particular vehicle, and then you get to the next one thinking, yeah, this is bigger and better and more powerful. But actually, as it turns out, you really suck in it. It just does not mesh with your playstyle. So that's kind of the case with the Conqueror as well. But sometimes, I mean, even with the Conqueror, I mean, I have to remind myself, this tank isn't fully upgraded yet, and I'm still getting used to this. And part of the frustration is also thinking that, oh, I'm a good player, I should just be able to do this. For me personally, I know that I have to... most tanks, unless they have a lot of similarities, I can't just jump into a new tank. I actually have to bed it in first. I have to learn my way into it. And again, 7-11, I mean, it's going completely against us. And this is probably the game so far in the Conqueror where I've done the most damage. And again, a source of frustration. A game where I did my utmost, despite my hesitancy with this machine, and it still just did not matter. But this is frustrating for a different reason, because in the last game it was cut and dry from fairly early on, and this one, it was more of a struggle, and it was more that I personally was able to do a lot damage wise, and able to do a lot more than the vast majority of the team, and it just ended up not mattering. And yeah, I don't know where that shot went. And yes, I did the flicky out thing, but I was feeling under some pressure at this point. And hello, surprise Yak Tiger 8.0. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to sit in front of him. He can pump out a lot more damage into me than I can get into him, probably. So, I mean, on this particular evening, I had a couple of matches like this, and I think it was after this one, which ended up being a 10,700 and change WN8 game, at least according to the garage stats mod I used. And I just thought, no, okay, I'm just going to go to bed now. Because at this point, when there's literally nothing more you can do, even if you're playing well and you're still getting results like this. Yeah, I mean, that is my main way of coping these days. It's just to call it quits. Unless there is something specifically that I am angling for. And there are individual tanks. I mean, we're looking at Yak Tiger 8.8 here. I've never particularly enjoyed playing that, but for a long time it was one of the best money earners I had. They've kind of normalised the tier 8 premiums now, but that was one where I always accepted I was going to have bad and frustrating games, and even the games where I did okay, it was still going to feel like a lot of work. But the thing is, it just absolutely pooped out credit, so I didn't care that much that I was having bad games. It was just, okay, I know I'm going to have a bad game, but as long as I do even a bit of damage, I'm still going to make a decent profit. So that's another approach. You know, have a goal in mind and think, okay, I'm going to get this much XP, and I don't care about win rate. That is probably one of the biggest ways to frustrate yourself, is to get obsessed about stats and win rate and damage per battle. you have to give yourself some slack. Okay, so you're in a stock tank, of course you're going to do worse than if you were in a fully elited tank. Or it's a weekend, so yes, your win rate's probably going to be lower than it would be otherwise. But all that said, I mean, sometimes there are more concrete things you can do to deal with frustration. Sometimes it's not so much a case as, just getting mad as getting mad but getting even. And I kind of mean by that if there is a particular source of your frustration, I mean, there are things beyond your control. Things like, and I've already talked about matchmaking, not being skill-based and you just get thrown in with a team, or you get put on a map and the tanks that matchmaking gives your team versus what it gives the enemy team mean that the deck is very definitely stacked against you. Let's say mines, and you've got a top-tier mouse platoon and the enemy team has a top-tier medium platoon. You're never going to take the hill, but maybe you can still have a chance of winning, but the deck is stacked against you, and you just have to try not to be too pessimistic. But what I mean by get even really is if there's a specific thing that you feel that you could work on. I mean, if you're getting frustrated because you're missing a lot of shots, for instance, well, unless there's some technical reason to do with your computer, for just as off the top of my head, you can go away and you can work on that, and you can consciously work to improve your aim, or maybe you use a mod that gives you the server-side reticle and the local reticle. There are things you can do for some of these things, or maybe you're getting penned a lot in a certain tank, so you go away and watch a guide for that tank. So it's not like frustration is an insurmountable thing in this game. An important thing is to know your own limits, because if you're just getting frustrated, you're just going to play worse and worse and worse and worse, and it's a downward spiral. But at the end of the day, really you have to find your own strategies. I mean, this isn't really a video that fits in neatly with other videos I have on my channel. This is just kind of, I know it's been a bit waffly, but I'm trying to give some idea of my own ways of coping with this and the reasons why we find these things frustrating. And I think it's perfectly natural that we do, because at the end of the day we are largely all here because we enjoy the game, because we want to do well at the game. And if it feels like stuff is getting in the way of that, then yeah, it's always annoying when there's stuff beyond your control that stops you enjoying something that you want to enjoy. So really my hope is that by doing this, I'm maybe helping mitigate that somehow, giving you some ideas, or just saying that even the better players of the game still experience this, and you only have to watch live streams to know that that's true. So, I apologise that this was a bit rambly, but it's kind of a tricky topic to encapsulate and give conclusions to, but hopefully it was helpful in some vague sense. So, if you want to share your own experiences, you can of course do that in the comments section below. Hopefully we'll get a bit of discussion going, who knows. You can hit the like button for this video, you can subscribe to my channel, you can check out my Facebook and Twitter pages, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.